All right, everybody, today we're going to talk about basically the entire Barcelona season so far, focusing mainly on September, everything that went wrong, everything that went very well, and just a broad overview of the entire thing, while also getting into the Osasuna match that I didn't make a single video on, and you guys seem a little upset about. Basically, why that didn't happen is because I was at a wedding during the match, and I was watching, so it wasn't ideal for me to make a video on it, but I probably could have gotten away with it. However, later that night, my family dog passed away, so I wasn't exactly thinking too much about the mess of a Barcelona match that happened. Forgive me, but I can get into it a little bit now. I'm okay. So, summarize the Osasuna match. It was a little unfortunate. Hansi Flick rotated a lot of players. I think we did need the rotations. I don't think he needed to rotate everyone in that match. He could have separated it out throughout the other matches. It is what it is. Gerard Martin, Sergio Dominguez didn't play that well. At the back, we had trouble holding the ball, especially in the first half. I did like how Hansi Flick was able to make changes, and going into the second half, we looked a lot better. I thought Pedri was really good, and then when Lamine came on, obviously that goal was really good. It's going to be forgotten because it was overshadowed by the loss. Overall, it is what it is. Koundé didn't have a great game. Neither did Iñaki Peña, but we're still at the top of the table. I think we're 2 points clear of Madrid. I'm not that upset about it. Overall, if you were to give me this end to a first half of the season or first month of the season to be 7 wins with 1 loss in La Liga, I would have taken that every day of the week. Now, there still is the Champions League thing to talk about and how they didn't get any points in their first match against Monaco. Tomorrow they play Young Boys, and we can see how that goes. I'm pretty optimistic about it. I'm really not that worried about it. I think Young Boys should be a pretty easy battle for these guys, especially with a little bit more of a rotated squad. Some of these guys should have a little bit more energy, should be able to handle it a little bit better, and that's a good thing, right? So overall, Champions League, I'm not too upset about the position we're in. We have plenty of time to figure it out. So now I want to get into the wins for September so far. What are the major takeaways about this side that we can really talk about and be excited to look at moving forward? Number one is the tactics. Is Hansi Flick's football. It's very exciting. I like seeing them press as a unit and do it well. They tried it under Xavi. It looked incredibly poor and never worked. Now it's actually working very well, and it's very nice to see it. It's working. We're scoring off of it. We're scoring a lot of goals, and that's exciting. We're not defending that well, but it's also we're a little bit weaker at the back. There's a lot of fragility that I'll get into later on in the video, but the tactics are exciting. It's creating a lot of goals, and it's fun football to watch. Win number 2 is that I think we're seeing a lot of fresh faces, or at least a couple of them. We're seeing Casado do very well. Inigo Martinez is really breaking through. Rafinha looks incredible. Not a new face, but a new stardom, you could say, relative to a little bit more of a subdued role in the past few years for Barcelona. It's nice to see all these guys. Obviously, Lamine is playing incredible football. I'd argue he's the best winger in the world right now, and he's 17 years old. That's fantastic. All of this talent coming through. It's very exciting for me. It should be very exciting for you, and I'm excited to see how the rest of the season pans out for those guys. Okay, so now for the MVPs of the season. To me, I think there's a lot of them because there's a lot of different aspects of the games that certain guys have been great in, and I'm going to try and get into a little bit about each one. Number one, the number one guy has to be Lamine. He has been the heart of the attack. We saw against Osasuna that this team looked a lot flatter without him on, without his ability and ambitious nature on the ball. This team really lacks it. And we saw that a little bit with last year's Barcelona and even the year before, where guys were a little bit too concerned. They were rotating the ball. They weren't making that aggressive pass. They weren't taking on their runner. And with Ferran Torres on the wing, it's not the same thing. These guys aren't nearly as ambitious as Lamine is, and that ambition combined with his ability to be clinical, and it's remarkable, and it's incredibly fun to watch. And his combination with my next MVP, Rafinha, it's unparalleled. And yeah, Rafinha deserves a lot of credit. That playing central role while also being able to play a decent job as a winger, combined with Lamine, make those runs in behind. It's awesome, and constantly press, lead the team, and captain the team. Love to see it. I love this development that we've seen from Rafinha. It's exciting. I'm excited to see. It wasn't expected for me, and it's just awesome to see him performing at this level, getting all of the attention he deserves, getting called back up for Brazil. I know there was some weird issues around it last time. And so I think those are the standout guys for me so far. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't other honorable mentions. Lewandowski, his finishing and his link-up play has been better. He has played a lot better so far this season than we saw from him last season. He's not perfect. He's still a 35-year-old striker, but he has been showing up when we need him to, and he deserves credit for that. And so do Inigo Martinez and Pedri. Both of these guys have held down certain areas of the pitch that we struggled in because there isn't a lot of depth there. In the middle, everybody is injured, and Pedri has stood up, especially in the Osasuna match, to be the only lifeline of creativity, of ball movement, of possession retention. And with Gavi and Firmino and Dani Olmo and Frankie coming back, it should just give him more support, more of a better understanding of who's around him, what he can do, and should lead to an even better side. I'm very excited to see what happens when all these guys come back, but Pedri has been really good this season. A lot of people ignore him or don't give him credit for whatever reason, but I think he has been really, really talented so far this year. Inigo Martinez as well deserves a ton of credit for holding down the back line. We saw how tough it is for this side to defend well without him in it. I'm surprised that he is so impactful. I know he has been historically very good for Athletic Club, and Barcelona have been pursuing him for years, but last season I didn't really see why. I understand why. He's a good leader. He's aggressive. He is pretty solid on the ball as well. He makes some very important passes for the side. That is critical, especially without a pivot right now. But just because there are a lot of guys playing well, it doesn't mean that there aren't really upsetting moments from these first few matches, and most importantly being the injuries that came through it in Marc Bernal and Marc-Andre ter Stegen. It's tough to see both of them go down. Some people are going to be less upset about the latter, but whatever. Marc Bernal looked so impressive. I talked a little bit about it in my Casado video on the main channel, but he was so exciting to watch, so talented for this side, and was looking to be one of the pillars of this side for years to come, and he still will be. I have no doubt he can come back from this injury perfectly fine, especially with Gavi able to help him, coach him through it, as he just had the exact same injury. So I'm confident they can figure it out. He can be back and better than ever next season at 18 years old, potentially even taller. I think he's like 191 centimeters. And yeah, but Marc-Andre ter Stegen, it's tough for me to see because obviously Iñaki Peña is not good enough right now. I think that's very clear to all of us. And so with the signing of Wojciech Szczesny, it makes us feel a little bit better about it. I know the Polish people, my landlord is Polish. He's very happy about it. Everybody in the comments are so hyped to see two Poles in the Barcelona squad, starting lineup, that is. There's more Polish people than French people in our lineup. There's more Polish players than Brazilians, and that's pretty cool for them. And I'm excited for them to be able to see that. And I'm excited to see Szczesny hopefully take that number one spot and run with it. I think he can be at least as good as ter Stegen. I think he's a better shot stopper, and apparently he's pretty good with his feet, something I ignored in my video about him on this main channel as well. But there is a silver lining here too, because there are a lot of guys coming back from injury at the exact same time. So we're losing Bernal and ter Stegen, but we signed Szczesny to cover for ter Stegen, and Frankie, Gavi, Fermin, and Dani Olmo are all expected to be back in the next month or so, with probably after the international break on October 20th. That's huge for us, especially considering what's coming up in the near future. I'm going to touch on that a little bit later as well. But with all those guys coming back, it can only help this side, most importantly, prevent what happened against Osasuna, where the team's a little bit depleted. There's not a lot of depth, and these guys can cover for that. They can offer more options for Hansi Flick, not only in the attacking midfield and the midfield overall, but also on the wing. Dani Olmo can play out there and be a little bit more of a, take on your defender winger more than Ferran Torres can. So hopefully for those of you guys that hate Ferran, you won't have to see him as much with all these guys coming back. Pedri can play on the wing or in that furthest forward midfield role. That's where he was actually playing against Osasuna a little bit, and he moved around a lot. But Pablo Torres also looks pretty solid. He's not injured. But with all of these guys coming back, the chemistry should just skyrocket, and their ability to just rotate players, not have a ton of stress on the legs of these guys, could lead to some much more exciting football and ability to not see this Osasuna match happen again. And I think that's incredibly important for us, not only to be hope for to not have to deal with that again, but also to see these guys finally play football again. It'll be really special for us. But that doesn't mean everybody's coming back, because Christensen and Araujo are still probably going to be out for a while. And without the two of them, the back line is very weak. It's very depleted. It's very fragile, and any injury can really disrupt it. If Balde goes down, we're going to have to see more of Gerard Martin, and I know not many of us like him too much either. Hector Fort could play there. Hopefully he plays there more than we see from Martin in the next few matches. And that's tough to say about a 17-year-old in Cubarsí and a 33-year-old in Inigo Martinez. Anything could happen, and it's concerning for those to be our pillars at the back. And sure, Eric Garcia could play as a center back, but I don't think we've seen him play as a center back at all this season so far. So maybe Hansi Flick doesn't like him there, and it's pretty clear that Sergio Dominguez isn't necessarily at that level yet, and neither is Gerard Martin. There are a few other guys on the bench and in Barca Athletic that could offer some support there, but not top tier, not Araujo especially, and Christensen as well. These guys offer something this team really needs. And so I'm a little concerned about what could happen if one of these guys get injured. Fingers crossed nothing happens and we don't have to deal with that, and these guys come back from injury and we can get the ball rolling. Frankie can play center back. Whether or not he should is an entire different conversation. But hey, there is some options here, and we got to work with the only options that we have. And maybe they can make a signing in December. Don't be too optimistic about it. But one last win before we get into looking forward is that apparently the Nike deal is finally getting across the line. That should bring us back to the 1-to-1 and allow us to spend a little bit more on signings and do things like that. Again, nothing is ever confirmed at this club, but it's looking a little bit more likely it's going to happen now than just speculation from Laporta in the media. So that is a good thing. But looking forward, we have a lot to be concerned about with Bayern Munich and Real Madrid coming basically right after the international break. They have to get out of the blocks running immediately when they all come back, and a lot of them are going to be called to their national teams. So hopefully no injuries happen, knock on wood, that it's all safe and sound for these guys and that they can figure it all out. Especially if Gavi, Frankie, and Dani Olmo and Fermin can all be back and ready for those matches. Having to play two of the best teams in the world 3 days apart is going to be tough, especially since it's looking like Real Madrid is coming into form and Mbappe might be back from his injury then as well. The first real test for this side, I've said this about a few different things. I think I said it about the Monaco game a little bit, but this is really going to show what this team has against these sides. We've all seen them perform so wonderfully in so many matches, but we haven't seen it on the biggest of stages. They haven't had crazy tests. They've played good teams and they've handled Villarreal. They've handled Athletic Club relatively easily, and so we'll see how they can handle all this. Overall, I'm excited for the rest of the season. I don't think this is the same team that we saw last year. I also don't think it's a completely different side, telling from this Osasuna match and the Monaco match. They do have a little mess up in them. They're not perfect. No team is, but that's okay. I think I'd rather see that this team has flaws and we are still building up and be reminded of that, so we don't get too wildly excited or too wildly hopeful for this season. I think it's okay to be hopeful. I am hopeful. I'm very optimistic right now, but this isn't a perfect side. They are still building, and we'll see what happens. This team is cool. The boys are doing pretty well, and I appreciate all your support so far. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of the season so far, and if you guys want to watch me live stream a watch along of the Young Boys match tomorrow, there's a link to Big Up, which is where I live stream all of my watch alongs. It's free to join. There are no ads, and there's some really cool tactic stuff coming very soon to the website that I'm very excited to show you. So click the link, join my account. I'm trying to be the second account ever on that website with over 1,000 members. So join it. I'll see you guys all later. Visca Barça, Visca Catalunya, and peace.